Okay, welcome to episode 3. We couldn't have an unplugged season and obviously not talk the hot topic of AI. Both though from a perspective of what does this mean to technology today, but also what does this mean for business? So if we start with the first point, obviously the big trend at the moment is SaaS dead. With the advent of agentic AI, does this now mean actually these ERP programs we've just been talking about and how difficult they were in episode 2 are no longer needed? So now let's talk about that in a bit more detail. So Partha, I'm going to come to you first. Is SaaS dead? What's your perspective?
Thanks for the hospital pass, Joe. So this one is hard, right? Because you are projecting into the future, and well, agentic AI wasn't a popular term 6 months back. Look where it is now. The technology existed for years; it's just been popularized. I mean, in the last month, I think I've had 3 or 4 different CIOs, CDOs come to me saying, "Well, our board has just asked this question. Why are we investing all this time and money to implement ERP when Satya Nadella has clearly said SaaS is dead with agentic AI, and he's no longer going to invest in Microsoft Dynamics as a ERP because AI agents will do it all in the future. So why are we spending all this time and money?" So it's a very relevant question. Now, it's a hard one to answer, but let me try. The first and most important thing is, where is this headed? This sort of North Star, this vision, is we have a set of AI agents which will typically be domain specific: finance, sales, marketing, procurement. They are digital workers. Now, that technology isn't quite there yet, but that is where we are moving, right? Salesforce's Agent Force is probably the most well-known example of betting the future of a SaaS product on agentic, right? But basically this simple notion, and I'm being overtly simplistic, of a bunch of digital workers coming to the business, doing stuff and going home, except they're not human beings, they're AI agents, in their department or in their context, in their domain, collaborating with each other within the department and collaborating with other agents in other domains, with the context carried through to solve a complex task, right? If that's the vision, right, then in that situation, think about this. These AI agents, what are they doing? They have the brain power and the processing logic to make choices while executing a process, while manipulating a business data. So all they need is access to the company's data. They manipulate it, change it, do what they have to do, put the data back, go home, start again, right, and collaborate along the way. So in that context, do they really need a SAP, a Salesforce, or whatever? The ultimate form of this idea is that processing logic, that code, that today is a proprietary sophistication of these ERP or other SaaS platforms, tomorrow will reside in that agent. And therefore, all you need is a database that the agent takes data out of, changes, and puts it back. So the future architecture in its ultimate form is this big consumer or pharma or manufacturing company having domain-specific databases and agent farms that just take data out, put data in. And therefore, in between that application layer, the SaaS layer, which we are all investing zillions in getting done, SAP, Salesforce, Workday, blah, 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 is no longer required. Now, therefore, it would logically follow SaaS is dead. Now, the reality check in all of that is, of course, firstly, that data that we are talking about, right? Today, that data resides in all our applications in a fragmented way. There's some finance data in SAP, some sales data in Salesforce, some HR data in Workday, etc. There's no one central place where all that data resides, right? But in the future, we need to trust the quality of the data and where it is stored and how accessible it is for the agents to be effective. So that's a baby step towards that future. The second very important thing is the technology in terms of that context of that task that the agents are collaborating on, being passed on from one to other, require all these agents to talk to each other seamlessly. The so-called agentic AI operating system, We are in very, very early stages of that concept, right? Obviously, there's been a few announcements in the last weeks, but there's no real industry standard that has evolved yet. Without that, the agent is great, but he's a lone agent, right? And then you need the human to carry it from one agent to the next, and you're back to square one. So the point I'm trying to make is, while the vision is absolutely there, it needs two important things to happen. First, that context, that operating system. Second, even more importantly, the fact is our data is today inside cloud SaaS applications, and the data moves to the processing logic. This architecture is the reverse. The data stays in one place, and the processing logic moves to the data. Okay? That's a foundational change in architecture, because we spent the last 50 years architecting apps in a certain way. Apps need master data, apps need transaction data. Suddenly we are saying apps are just code and we can write the code in fly. The code needs to move to the data, which is stored in one or many places, and do what they have to do. That is going to take X years. Now, whether X is in months or in years, I mean, who's going to place that bet, right? Because the pace at which things are changing, I can say it's 10 years away, and then it is not even 10 weeks. Somebody comes up with it. And that's the problem. Do you then wait? And how long can you wait? What if it takes 10 years? So you have to sort of place your bets on the so-called no-regret steps. And working out what those steps are not easy, but there are some hints and clues in what's happening around us. So all I'm trying to say is, SaaS is dead or not is not the issue. Issue is, SaaS may be dead in the future. We are not there. What can you do now to get ready if that happens, and take advantage of it to create business value? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and look, if I can pick this up, listening carefully to what you're saying, whenever I kind of think about these kinds of questions, I come back to Einstein's quote again: "We're terrible at prediction, especially when it's about the future." The second thing I think of is actually, and these are, I think, very well-known words from Bill Gates: we completely overestimate how much or what's going to happen in the immediate future, and we totally underestimate what's going to happen over a longer period of time. The third thing I'm thinking of is that, just hold on a minute, time out. Like, we need a little bit of a reality check here. As someone who's led one of these very large, or co-led actually with you, led one of these large transformation projects as an executive, but also, sitting in the supervisory board of a large global vehicle leasing company, and being the head of the digital committee overseeing one of these projects. Sometimes I still get people calling me and going, "Hey, Stefan, you've done this kind of stuff." I'm talking about business leaders. You've done this kind of stuff, and I've been asked to sponsor this project. What do you think? And my reaction to that is, hey, you're being asked the wrong question. Because this is not about sponsorship. This is about leadership and ownership from a business perspective. So if this is something that you're thinking about is going to get done by the technical people over there, while you're going to act as a sponsor and still get on with what you were doing, exactly what you were doing before, that is not going to work. And that is, I think, one of the critical success factors in these projects. And it is that business ownership, that business leadership, because this is, in the end, not technological change. Yes, that underlies the whole thing, but this is really about business change and business outcomes and value creation.
Whether it is dead today, tomorrow, in 10 years, whatever the future has, well, there are things that need to be fixed today in order for the business to function. So we need to make sure that we have global process ownership, that we have a proper data management, all of those things that are needed today and will still be needed, I'm sure, tomorrow, whether it is SaaS or whether it is the next generation of whatever.
Now, moving on to AI in business, there's obviously a lot of hype at the moment. There's a lot of talk about using AI in businesses and the revolution it's going to bring. But is that the reality that we're seeing? I guess I wanted to get your perspectives on, is that what the reality of today is happening? Stefan, maybe I can come to you. Is AI really transforming businesses in the way that we're seeing reported?
Joe, I think it's a great question, and it depends where you look. If you look on LinkedIn, you would think AI is transforming everything, right? Because everyone seems to be busy doing all kinds of sandbox experiments and trying to solve problems, working agile. Look, all that's great. Very often what I see is that they're tangential problems. And of course you need to spend time to have your organization getting used to working agile and together and working with technology. But that is of course not the objective ultimately in itself. There are, I think, only a few real examples out there of businesses who are, let's call it, fundamentally addressing some of the critical challenges, possibly problems or opportunities within their business model, how to deliver a better customer experience, how to deliver new functionality to customers or to consumers. And I think we've all heard recently, there was almost a kind of a tandem release, right, from Visa and MasterCard. One, the intelligent commerce platform, and the other one, Agent Pay, which basically completely transforms the UX or user journey for people who either want to simply buy groceries or make a last minute gift purchase or organize travel or perhaps even organize an event. And that introduces a completely different level of functionality and an experience and outcome for the consumer. And I think a lot of what I still see is a bit tangential, but doesn't quite deal with the core opportunities or issues that are out there. So I think a question for leaders, and again, it doesn't matter if you're running a corporation of 50 billion or you're running a team of 5 with a revenue of 1 million. What is the business opportunity, or what is the friction point? How do I satisfy my customer? How do I do it in the most efficient way and the most enjoyable, frictionless way possible?
But Laurence, coming to you, you're also having board conversations, I assume, on the use of AI and how it's changing businesses. What types of conversations are being had at the moment?
So in broad terms, you want to know whether the company is at risk of missing out, missing the boat, or at risk of not being in control. More realistically, today AI is covering many different realities. So it does help to the conversation, to break it down into, are we talking about AI as it can revolutionize, completely change the business model, very much business minded, and the way Stefan was describing some recent examples? Are we talking about AI increasing productivity in your business? Or are we talking about just AI being used by your employees, whether you want it or not, because they'll go and ask questions to GPT? And what do you do with these different kinds of AI? And how do you feel they're core to the business, or they should be more looked at from a risk point of view? It is a conversation that's happening much more at board level. One thing to say is that we all need to keep educating ourselves. So it takes being very humble, because a lot of us know very little. Some of us know more, but even the ones that know more are at risk of being outdated very quickly. So going out, and it's not only about having an AI expert on your board, and maybe it's not about that. It is about everyone acknowledging that this is a journey, and if you want to move along the company on that journey, you need to continuously educate yourself, you need to have the outside-in perspective, and you need to be really humble about what you know and how fast things are moving, and come back to the business. And what does the business need? What is a journey that your consumer or your customer needs, as Stefan was describing?
But Partha, maybe I can ask you, because the technology transformations we've been discussing and the ERP transformations are a big vehicle for change. And therefore, embedding AI or being an opportunity to change how businesses work, especially if they span multiple years, has to be part of their agenda. Are you seeing that in the programs we're seeing in the industry at the moment?
The answer is no. I think there was recently, Joe, you and I were talking to a very large US consumer pharma company recently, and the leader of the transformation was saying, wasn't she, that there was a conference of 100 plus of such organizations who were all in the midst of that core transformation, and there was this question asked, raise your hand if you are embedding AI into your future process design in your ERP transformation. And she said, these are some of the top 100 of the largest companies, consumer pharma manufacturing, not even one hand went up. So for all the talk, there is very little action. And I think a lot of that is down to what happens in large companies, which is there is expertise, but they are in silos. So there is a team that does ERP, there's a team that experiments with AI, and then there's the business, and actually the business innovation needs, the AI understanding of new technology, and the good old ERP process data centricity do not come together to solve a problem. It is everybody's doing their job, right? And I think that is in effect holding innovation back, because cast your mind forward. This organization and the 100 others, they will spend next 3 to 5 years, hundreds of millions of dollars, and if they're successful, they will create a ERP system, let's say state of the art, that is without AI. And then the philosophy goes, but since our data is in one place and processes are harmonized, we'll just add AI on top. Now, as a principle, that actually is counterintuitive, because if you think, if you're designing an order to cash process or source to whatever process it is, and you are actually designing it for humans, in 3 years' time, whether it's agentic or generative or good old-fashioned deterministic AI or automation, you've now again designed something that is without AI, and now you have to go and extract it and put this in. So there's a real opportunity for all these businesses now to basically deal with the patient on the operating theater and put the chips in at the right time. Now, why are they not doing it? All these are some of the greatest companies on the planet, and these are mega programs. It's because of what Laurent said, it's risk. This perception that these programs are too risky, just get them done, and all this AI thing isn't proven. Let's not jeopardize our real business core with all this flaky stuff, right? And once you're done, then we'll play with it. That mindset is today our biggest danger, because actually that technology, as Stefan quoted an example, is there. And with sensible, controlled infusion into the core processes, into the core systems programs, you can actually get real business value. And that is what Stefan said. The definition of AI in many corporates today is do some proofs of concepts, and essentially take a few pictures and post on LinkedIn, as opposed to put them into the design phase of the S4HANA project. Select the top 10 business value cases that create real value and make a real attempt to embed that in as you are doing your core plumbing. The final bit then, of course, is, and this is another hindrance that stops people, is if you look at sort of this digital infrastructure that companies are putting in place, I'm talking about best in class, SAP, Salesforce, Workday, whatever, these companies are rightfully all investing massively in their own AI. But there's no common standard, there's no handshake, right? So if your processes and data are spread between Salesforce, Workday, and SAP is optimizing their own AI, Salesforce is doing their own agent force, and Workday is, I'm sure, doing their equivalent. But if you're Laurent or Stefan, the data set that you need is across all these applications. Your people data, your order data, your customer data, your stock data, your finance data. For you to trust AI, agentic AI, to make the right choices, you need these things to talk to each other or even exchange data in a way that doesn't come off the shelf. Organizations will have to build it themselves because these are all competitors. The software providers are competitors. So unless some of these, call it foundational issues on technology architecture are sorted, it will be deemed as too risky. Therefore, it will be taken out of scope as something to do in 5 years' time. And therefore, it will continue to be a proof of concept and it will never scale. Now, you flip it the other way around, there is an answer here, but it does need some things to change, mostly the mindset.
Yeah, I think these programs, like you said, are perceived as difficult enough. And therefore, whose job really is that to be asking those questions and challenging the program to deliver? I mean, we started the conversation today in some of the episodes talking about why are we doing this? What's the business? I think being able to connect that back and being able to say there's someone and there's someone's role on the program to basically be able to challenge some of that will be key.
I mean, or indeed in the business, as you said. So, I mean, Laurence often talks to us, doesn't she, about global process ownership. So your ideal futuristic GPO understands AI, understands SAP, understands Salesforce, excuse me, in the context of lead to cash. And therefore is able to take the lead in saying, when I'm redesigning SAP or Salesforce, I'll activate these use cases. But of course, those GPOs are hard to find. What's the process of educating them, elevating them, giving them the freedom to act, and getting them to work across departmental silos? So we are back to the good old problems that are stopping new, exciting technology. And in many ways, I think AI techies trying to sell AI to business has actually been counterproductive. It's been relegated to a lab. We need real business people to grab hold of this tech, exactly like previous generations of tech, and get the foundations fixed and put that into the mainstream. The mainstream is the ERP, whether we like it or not. Mainstream is your CRM application, whether we like it or not. Right? Till agentic AI apparently revolutionizes all that, we are in this world, and we need to make sure that AI is built into these processes as they are being redesigned for the next decade. Otherwise, we'll miss the bus again, and we'll have the same conversation in 5 years' time.
Well, thank you very much. I think for this episode, we talked everything on AI and technology. Thank you very much for all of your time. That actually wraps up our season 2 of Unplugged. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of topics today, and actually a lot of common themes throughout the whole of the season. Change management, we talked about sort of ownership and really being clear again on why are you doing this, what are the business trying to achieve, and really staying true to that throughout the journey. But let's also challenge how we can do things a bit different.
Can I just say, Joe, without sort of not letting you conclude, what a privilege it is for us to have Laurence and Stefan with us. I mean, frankly, how many, call it technology transformation conversations are being had in the world today with some people with such business eminence in the board, in the executive team, right? And I think that is the way to change it. It's when senior business leaders lead the way, technology will follow, right? Because in personal computing, the technology is all there. It's business adoption. So it's an absolute privilege, Stefan and Laurence. Thank you for being here.